Mr. Chancellor, today we are proudly saying welcome home to an esteemed McGill alumnus, Gordon Joshua Wasserman, the Baron Wasserman of Pimlico in the city of Westminster. Looking back, it is fair to trace the roots of Lord Wasserman's extraordinary career to his time at McGill. Of course, Gordon Wasserman, as we knew him then, excelled academically during his McGill studies, earning a prestigious scholarship to study at Oxford. But he was also active in student life outside of the classroom, and you can see the beginnings of his engagement with societal issues in his service as editor-in-chief of the McGill Daily student newspaper. After his Oxford studies as a Rhodes Scholar, Lord Wasserman did in fact choose a career in academia, teaching economics at Oxford's New College. But fate soon intervened in the form of the politician Roy Jenkins, who offered him a position as his economic advisor in London. "I loved teaching and had no intention of ever leaving Oxford," Lord Wasserman has said, "but I found that I loved my work as a civil servant even more." So began his more than 25 years serving in the British government. Lord Wasserman filled a variety of posts in public service, including head of the government's Urban Deprivation Unit and Director of Social Policy in the Central Policy Review staff of the Cabinet Office under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. In 1983, Lord Wasserman was appointed Assistant Under-Secretary of State for Police Science and Technology in the Home Office, beginning what would prove to be a wide-ranging commitment to applying science and technology to the criminal justice system. Furthermore, he advocated for democratic accountability in policing, seeing it as a public service that required stronger governance and stronger citizen engagement. Lord Wasserman subsequently went to the US for 12 years, advising a variety of police departments in major cities across the country, including New York, Philadelphia, and Miami. He also advised the US government, becoming the first British national to be appointed to the Law Enforcement and Corrections Technology and Policy Assessment Executive Panel of the National Institute of Justice of the Department of Justice. Lord Wasserman a depuis repris sa vie publique dans son pays adoptif, la Grande-Bretagne, agissant comme conseiller du Premier ministre et comme membre de la Chambre des Lords depuis 2011. En plus de sa fonction publique, Lord Wasserman a participé à un certain nombre d'œuvres bienfaisances, soulignant la nécessité de réformer la justice et de veiller au bien-être et à la sécurité de la collectivité. Lord Wasserman is truly an example of a McGillian who has shown exemplary dedication and passion to public service. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Gordon Lord Wasserman so that you may confer upon him the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
I don't know if everybody knows, in 1980, I was president of McGill Student Society. Our relationship with the McGill Daily was testy, let's put it that way. But despite Gordon having been editor-in-chief of the McGill Daily, anyway, we'll invite him up for a speech. Gordon, the floor is yours. We believe in freedom of speech.
I didn't know that my editorship of the McGill Daily would, somehow last would be so long and inspire such a reaction from the Chancellor. Chancellor McCall-McBain, Principal, and Vice Chancellor Fortier, Mr. Panda, Chair of the Board of Governors, members of the Platform Party, proud parents and guests, and most of all, you, the graduating class of 2022. Before I begin my formal convocation address, I want to take a moment to tell you how lucky McGill is to have John McCall McBain as its new chancellor. His reputation for vision, leadership, and imaginative philanthropy extends far beyond McGill, Montreal, or even Canada. I know from personal experience that Oxford University, my other alma mater, holds him in the highest esteem and is deeply indebted to him for his extraordinary generosity and support, particularly to the Rhodes Trust. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to say this because I tell you, for years I've heard about the Chancellor's generosity to universities around the world and making possible for students from all over the world to enjoy absolutely first-class university education, opportunities which they never otherwise would have had. Now, dear graduating class, I find it very difficult to believe that it's now more than 60 years since I was sitting where you were sitting now, waiting to receive my degree. It was a beautiful Montreal day, sunny and warm with a clear blue sky, which will happen later today. I have a photograph of that convocation on my desk in London, and it gives me the greatest pleasure every time I look at it. It gives me pleasure not only because it reminds me of that wonderful day, but also because it reminds me of 4 wonderful years I spent at McGill. I don't know about you individually or as a group, but I loved my time here. I loved being an undergraduate at McGill. My memory is probably not as good as it used to be, but looking back, I seem to recall that we were all pretty happy then. Of course, the world had big problems, but as far as I can remember, our biggest worry was whether the Montreal Canadiens would win the Stanley Cup again at the end of the season. And that really wasn't a problem because they always did. Yes, during the 4 years I spent at McGill, from 1955 to 1959, the Canadiens won the Stanley Cup every single year. I don't have to remind this audience the last time that happened was in 1993. But I know that even in Montreal there's more to life than hockey. And that since I left McGill, the world has changed in many more serious and fundamental ways. There have been wars and pandemics and global financial crises and a few much deeper and longer-lasting changes, such as the development of information technology and the whole new universe of the internet and social media to which the IT revolution gave birth. And while you were in school and at university, the world has finally woken up to the devastating effects of global warming and the need for all of us to do something about it urgently. And it's because the world has changed so much over the past half-century that many of the things which you, the members of the class of 2022, are planning to do when you leave here weren't even conceivable then. Most of us in the arts program in 1959 were thinking of becoming doctors and lawyers and accountants and academics. And those of us who worked on the Daily wanted to be journalists, newspapers, the Gazette, the Star. Those were our dreams. None of us even thought of being a data scientist or an expert in artificial intelligence or robotics, because frankly, those fields hadn't even been invented yet. And if they hadn't crossed our radar as realistic possibilities for arts graduates. And I have no doubt that when the graduating class of 2082 is seated here, waiting to get their degrees, the opportunities of which they will be dreaming will be in fields which you and I cannot even imagine. What do we learn from this? For me, the main lesson is that the world is a wonderful place, constantly evolving, constantly changing. Nothing can be taken for granted. No disappointment, such as a failure to get what is now known as the dream job, or the dream scholarship, or other opportunities, should be taken as anything more than a stumble along the way. And by the same token, graduates, getting that job or winning that very special scholarship should not be interpreted as meaning that one is on the road to perpetual success of one of life's ultimate winners. The fact is that none of us, no matter how clever or talented or hardworking, can know when we begin our first job or begin our first graduate course where that course or that job or opportunity is going to lead. I'm willing to bet that even Principal Fortier had no idea when she was awarded her BSc in 1972 that she would be sitting here as principal of the university 50 years later. It may be difficult to accept, but none of us, no matter how hard we try, can know what the future holds for us. For this reason, the only way to live one's life is one step at a time. And here I very much echo the Chancellor's earlier remarks. There's simply no point in wasting energy trying to plan one's entire professional career in meticulous detail. And there's certainly no point worrying about whether any particular job or course or other opportunity will look good on one's CV. In a world which is constantly changing, it's simply not possible to know which job or which opportunity will be most important in 30 years' time. My own experience tells me that if one enjoys a job or assignment and puts one's heart into it and does it as well as one can, one is much more likely to do it better than if one is simply doing it for the sake of the CV. And I can tell you also from first-hand experience that doing a task as well as one can has a number of other very significant payoffs. Firstly, it does wonder for one's own sense of self-worth and well-being, and that makes one much easier to live with and much easier to work with. And more practically, doing a job enthusiastically and well, no matter how trivial, how repetitive, how boring, how dead-end that job may seem, is much more likely to mean that your boss will appreciate and value you. And in my experience, that's what really counts in the end. My mother, who was herself a double McGill graduate who went on to become a professor down the road at Concordia, was fond of saying that everything turns out for the best. That advice sometimes infuriated me, as it seemed to me to be no more than an empty cliche. But now, as I look back at 60 years since I sat, more than 60 years since I sat where you're sitting today, I understand better and appreciate more what she was trying to tell me. Here I am, a member of the UK House of Lords, whose alma mater has just honored him in this most public way, and I'm touched. And more important, here I stand as someone who has led a life full of wonderful friends, family, and colleagues, and enjoyed almost every minute of it. I have no idea which of the tens of thousands of decisions which I've taken since my first day at McGill were critical to my future. Was it choosing McGill in the first place? Was it joining the Daily? Was it doing philosophy? Was it going to Oxford? Was it moving to London? How much was due to the courses I took, to particular professors, to being in the right place at the right time, or to that something we can't identify and therefore call luck? I have no idea, nor can I or anyone else ever know. It's not that kind of thing. So my advice to you, graduating class of 2022, is to take each day as it comes. Try your hardest to enjoy each day, each challenge, and each relationship as much as you can. And if you come across one of those bumps in the road, to which the Chancellor referred, while you're on your journey, remember that it's nothing more than a bump on a very long road. Good luck to you, McGill graduating class of 2022.